The first project I made after learning the Legacy ornamental mill was this, what I refer to as sort of a European country side serving table. As you can see, this table incorporates a 3-start barley twist using that same barley twist bit. We then make 5 beads on the leg in between the shelf blocks, and then we go back to a section of 3-start barley twist again before we transition into the foot of the table. The blocks on the legs are mortise blocks which will receive the shelves that we're going to put on the table. Okay, let's take just a few minutes and talk about material preparation for this project. We're going to actually cut 4 pieces of material that are 2 inches square by 34.5 inches long. The actual final milled piece for the leg is going to be about 1.75 inches, so we'll start at 2 inches. A good idea is to take and measure through, and the dimensions should be in your shop notes, but go through and measure where the blocks are, because we're actually going to mill sections of the legs round, or put barley twist and beads and coves on them. Those are going to be rounded, and these square rectangular areas are going to be blocks for joinery, where we're actually going to be able to attach our shelves. Now once you've done that on one side and do that on all 4 legs, it's probably not a bad idea to take and mark where you're actually going to be milling the coves for the barley twist, and that might expedite the process as well. It's also probably not a bad idea to mount all 5 screws onto the index hub for a couple reasons. One is, of course, we're using paint grade poplar here. It's pretty soft material, and so 5 screws will help secure that. The other reason, and probably more importantly, is we're actually going to remove 2 of the screws so that we don't run into them when we mill our tenons, which will receive the rails for the table. One of the first things we'll do is use that surface planing bit to take the corners off, to get those areas like we had talked about earlier round, or at least take the corners off so that we can receive that barley twist without hogging too much material off. And we'll go ahead and do that now on all 4 pieces. Now, as you can see here, we're not too terribly concerned with the appearance of the piece at this point. We're just mostly concerned about hogging off a lot of material so that we can receive that 1-inch barley twist bit. To mill the barley twist section of the piece, we're not going to go into a lot of details. You should be familiar with milling the candlestick and milling other spirals, that you should be familiar enough with how this is done. So we'll just talk about the little sections and show you which router bits we've used and how the piece was made. Now this is nothing more than a 3-start barley twist using a 1-inch barley twist bit on a 3-inch pitch. Okay, this is very basic. You should be able to get through that no problem. This next section here then uses that same router bit and just positions the router bit 1 inch down the length of it, so we're actually creating beads. That just adds a little bit of visual relief. Instead of having 3 sections of barley twist, we're just doing this design here a little bit differently. And then of course the next section is another section of barley twist, 3-start, and again the stops, start and stopping points are in your book. The foot of the piece was done using that same 1-inch barley twist bit on the end to create this piece here, and of course that cove there. The space here is different. Just to give it a little bit different design, we came in and used an 1.5-inch barley twist bit. Excuse me, that's actually a 2-inch barley twist bit to give us that cove there. So it changes the design of the foot a little bit. And of course we flattened that off with the 1.25-inch surface planing bit. The other detail that you want to take a look at is simply by using a 1-inch chamfer bit. We've come in at this position here right on the edge of that barley twist and cut the corners, knock the corners off on these blocks. That then gives us the block that we'll use to mill our mortise, and we'll go to that section now. Milling the mortises for our shelves is really quite simple. We're using an 1/2-inch upcut spiral bit. We're actually going to mill a 3/4-inch mortise in each of the blocks, and we'll just go from point to point that's left from that chamfer on that block, and we'll just mill, essentially plunge down halfway into those blocks. That will then identify, once we do that on each side, we're doing that on each and 2 sides, indexing that system 6 holes or 90 degrees, then that'll create those mortises on these blocks. Now for this, it's actually just going to plunge down in and create that 3/4-inch area here, and then as well as here, so we're plunging halfway in. That's going to receive the rails that are going to hold the top into place. Let's give you a close-up of how we're milling that. Now you can see that milling that mortise is really quite clean. If we then just index the piece 90 degrees, and again we've plunged halfway through, we can lock that into place and get ready to cut that next one. Now we've set our stops here so that we're centered over the workpiece, but we also have given ourselves an 1/8 of an inch off of each side of center. That's going to give us that 3/4-inch dimension that we want here. The other thing that you'll need to do is set your stops on your x-axis. This one here is at 3/4 of an inch, and then we're at 2 1/4 here. And so that allows us then to just move that router, and it'll give us a nice clean mortise.